We're in this fourth part of this series titled Shift, Opt for the Exceptional. And I tell you, I absolutely love what's going on with our online campus. And there's many reasons why I'm so excited about what's going on with our online campus. One is, for so many people, it's their first step into the life of Tri-County Church. And maybe that's your story. I mean, before you took a step into a physical campus, you were kind of snooping around online, just trying to see what Tri-County is all about. And we love that. And it is a great just first step for people. I love our online campus because so many of you are using it as a tool to walk on a faith journey with a friend, a family member. Back in December, I was talking with someone after service, and he was sharing with me that he loves our online campus because there's people that he's been inviting, but they're not ready to take a step into a physical location. That's a big step on their faith journey. But what he'll do is you'll text them and say, hey, I'm headed to church right now. Here's a link. Join me online. And he'll come, you'll sit in a seat. He'll bring out his phone. He'll actually log into the online campus. And he'll watch as he's sitting in a physical location as a friend of his is on the online campus. I'm like, that is awesome, like the intentionality. I know so many of you are just sharing, and say, hey, why don't you at least check it out online or the message this weekend that you need to watch it. It's a great tool. But it's also for moments like last weekend with snow apocalypse, and even right now it's like a snow globe outside. You know, the snow's coming down, and I know so many of you are at home right now connecting with us online just because of the snow, whether you're up in Renova or Punxsutawney or St. Mary's, and you just couldn't make the drive to one of our physical locations. And I love that our online campus it's a little real thriving campus. And last week, as we saw the snowstorm coming in, I get to serve with such an incredible team of people. And we were watching the weather, and all of a sudden the team kicked in and said, okay, what if we have to shut down our physical locations? We still want to have church available in our online campus. You know, it doesn't matter about the amount of snow. Like, we can still have church together online. And so the team kicked in. I got a phone call, and they're like, hey, Chris, can you have the message ready by Thursday? And that's like 3 whole days earlier than I'm used to. I'm like, I'll have it done. So Thursday we came in, shot the message. We shot all the other video components. They started putting it all together. And now it's important to know that our online campus right now, it's live. Our online campus is getting the feed from our Du Bois Hill campus, our broadcast campus. But if all the physical locations are down, we had to have something, pre-recorded and ready. And so the team just did an amazing job. Friday at 6 was a magical time that we're going to make the final decision based on all the information we knew at that point. And so at 6 p.m. Friday, I jumped on a conference call with a couple other leaders, and we just talked through what's the wise decision to make. And I want to just take a moment because I think the why is always important. Why did the decision, or why was that leadership decision made? I just think the why is important. And I just want to let you all know for 2 reasons. And they're both equally important. The first reason we made the decision to cancel our physical campuses last week was we have hundreds of team members that serve across all of our physical locations every week. Hundreds. In our Kids Rock area, our Velocity Student Ministry area, on our worship teams on the stage, everyone behind in production, our lights, video, switching room, sound, you name it. Our guest services team, both within our auditoriums, out in our lobbies, getting coffee ready, donuts ready, standing there smiling and greeting people. I mean, hundreds and hundreds of team members that make every weekend such a special place across Tri-County, all of our churches. And we hear all the time how friendly Tri-County it is, and it's because of our incredible team members. That's why it is. And we didn't want to put our team members in jeopardy to try to get to a physical location. That was one of the reasons. The second reason is when the governor made the state of emergency, right? And we're just like, he asked all of us to stay off the road. Right? He's like, from this time, please stay off the road. And here's the thing. In our region, Tri-County Church is a big church, which means a lot of people are watching. And I just think we need to always steward that influence, that leadership well. And wise leaders want to follow leadership. And so when the governor said, hey, please just stay off the road, Saturday and Sunday, just stay off the road, we wanted to follow that leadership. And we just thought that was a good stewardship of the leadership, of the influence we had. And so again, with our team members and that, plus we have this amazing thing called our online campus. And if you were on last week, every service, it was electric. I mean, it was just a conversation and the fun and everyone coming from one church right where you are. And so if you're new with us, just know you can go to tcconline.tv and you can connect with our online campus. And if you've never invited someone to take a step into church by our online campus, I'm just telling you, it's such a great, simple first step for people to take a step in. Another resource I want to highlight, again, if you're just kind of new, taking a step into Tri-County churches, if you go to tcconline.info, there's a ton of information there. I mean, anything that's going on in the life of the church, you can find it there. But we have what's called discussion guides that get attached to every message, every series we do. It's a one-page discussion guide. You can download it. And our life groups use this, and it takes the weekend content and puts it into action in personal lives. It's a great tool. You can take it for yourself personally. You can grab a group of people and work through that discussion guide together. Again, it's just another great tool for you on your spiritual journey. Now, if you have a middle school or high school kids in your house, if you're a parent of a middle school, high school kid, if you're a grandparent and your grandkids are in that middle school, high school age range, you have heard of Fortnite. Fortnite, there's actually a dance to it. I'm not going to show you that dance because we record everything here, and that would find its way onto the internet, right? So I'm not going to even do it off the stage because someone will have their phone out, right? But Fortnite it's a game that's played. And so last weekend during our snow apocalypse event, my girl's like, Dad, you got to play Fortnite with us. And you see, right when Fortnite came out, I set up an account just to check it out. And Kiera, my oldest, took over that account. And then my younger daughter, Claire, she wanted an account, so I set up an account for her. So they both had their accounts. They've been playing Fortnite, and they know everything about Fortnite. So like, Dad, you got to play with us. I'm like, okay. So that required me setting up an account for Fortnite. So I sat down with my laptop, and they wanted me to put in my name. So I lied. I put in a fake name. That's okay, by the way. You can lie in certain things. Some of you are like, what did he say? So I put in a fake name. That's not lying. It was just a fake name. I put in a fake name. I put in an email address. That was one of those email addresses you never check. And put that in. But then it asked me for a screen name. And I'm like, I need a screen name. So I looked at my oldest daughter and said, hey, Kiera, I need a screen name. And without thinking, without blinking, she like blurts out anatophobia. I go, what? She goes, anatophobia. I'm like, what's anatophobia? She goes, it's anatophobia. That should be your screen name. I'm like, I know that you're saying anatophobia should be my screen name, but I'm like, what is anatophobia? And if you have teenagers, have had teenagers, I then got that look like, Dad, are you stupid? Why don't you know what anatophobia is? I'm like, Kiera, I don't know what anatophobia is. And then Claire starts laughing. Kiera's laughing. They're laughing at me. I'm just trying to figure out what anatophobia is. She goes, that should be your screen name. So for transparency, my screen name is now Anatophobia 46 because someone had anatophobia. So finally, Kiera tells me what anatophobia is. You know what that is? It's a fear of ducks. And I'm thinking to myself, as I sit on the couch, I'm thinking to myself, my oldest is going to be in college in a year and a half, and I'm so glad she knows this pointless piece of information. And I'm thinking to myself, all right, fear of ducks. Like of ducks? Like I'm pretty sure no one, and I want to be sensitive, so if by some chance someone online actually has anatophobia, I'm sorry. But I'm going to make fun of you for a few moments. No one can be afraid of ducks. Like I've never had this moment where I'm thinking to myself, what if, Chris, you're out in the middle of the lake and you have floaties on and someone shoves you off the boat, but they keep on driving, you're by yourself in the middle of the lake with floaties on, and all of a sudden there's a gang of ravenous ducks that come swimming after you and they encircle you. I've never had that fear, have you? No. I mean, we have other fears. Like, I don't know for you, arachnophobia, right? The fear of spiders. Some of you, that's real. The Pennsylvania spider population is massive. I spend all summer just trying to clean up cobwebs. I mean, they don't sleep at all, right? In Vegas, we had cockroaches. They're small, like really pale-looking cockroaches. They were everywhere. In New York City, New York City cockroaches, they're the size of small puppies. I mean, they're massive, right? They could carry away your child, right? Right? But here in Pennsylvania, I mean, there's spiders everywhere. Personally, I don't have a fear of spiders, but maybe you do. Maybe you have a phobia. Anyone know what a phobia is? The fear of snakes. Yeah. Like, I don't have the fear of all snakes. I have the fear of the Pennsylvania rattlesnakes that like to sunbathe in June, July, and August. I'm serious. That's what people tell me all the time. I love to run on trails and ride on trails. And people are like, hey, just be aware. In June, July, and August, the snakes are out sunbathing. I'm like, snakes sunbathe? They get a tan? Right? But I almost stepped on a rattler snake in Fort Collins, Colorado one time. Like, I do have this fear of stepping on a snake in the middle of the woods by myself, getting bitten and dying there by myself. Like, that's real. Not all snakes, just the killing type. Like, do you have a phobia? Maybe you have hippophobia. Do you know what hippophobia is? Anyone? Fear of? Not hippopotamuses. That's too easy. It's a fear of horses. Yeah, you just Google it later. If you're online right now, you can Google it now because you're online. But yeah, like, there's a reason why it's called hippophobia, and it's not the fear of hippopotamuses, even though that would probably be a greater fear than the fear of horses. But I mean, horses usually are friendly, but if they kick you, you're in a world of hurt. But I started thinking about anatidophobia. I'm like, how in the world could anyone be fearful of ducks? And by the way, I know you're all dying to know, we've named my friend here. His name is, or her, is, well, it's Lucky. It's spreading. Isn't that hilarious, by the way? Some of you are like, some of you still don't get it. Lucky duck. Lucky duck. In about 5 minutes, some of you are going to start laughing because you're going to get it at that point, right? This is Lucky. So I started researching. I'm like, okay, I want to know more about anatidophobia. And I had some free time this week, and I had nothing else to do than to research this. And this is what I found out about this phobia. Ready? Here we go. A person suffering from this condition feels that somewhere in the world, a duck, and we're inclusive, or goose, is watching him or her. So for the rest of the time together, we have a duck going to be watching you the entire time. But think about this phobia. This is a real, again, if you have this, I'm kind of sorry. Somewhere in the world, somewhere, it doesn't even have to be here, it's watching you. And then, but it goes on. I mean, this is a real life definition. It goes on and says, not attacking or touching, simply watching the individual. I mean, the reality of you being tossed in a lake with floaties on and a swarm of ravenous ducks surrounding you, like, that's not even part of the phobia. It's just watching, just staring. That's all it is. And when you think about this phobia, right? You think about some of your worries. Think about some of those things that keep you up at night. Think about some of those fears that fill your mind. Think about those anxieties. Because all anxiety is this irrational fear towards something completely undefined. A duck somewhere in the world watching you, not biting, not pecking at you, not a whole herd of ducks, swarm of ducks, flock of ducks coming after you. No. And when you think about, right, when you think about those irrational fears, completely undefined, of what might happen, what could be, what might come your way. I mean, I think about my phobia of just poisonous snakes. right? And for some of you, you're with me. You're not afraid of all snakes, just the kind that can kill you, right? And that's real. And you think about, hey, the summer months are coming, and I got to watch out because maybe on that trail I'm going to get bitten by a snake, and that's going to be bad. I'm going to die. But you know what's interesting about that? Well, that irrational fear towards the undefined. Do you know that in the United States alone, you have a 1 in 50 million chance of being bitten by a venomous snake and dying? Last year, 5 to 6 people died from a snake bite. You're 9 times more likely to get struck by lightning and die than you are from getting bitten by a venomous snake and dying. But I'm just telling you, this June, it's gonna warm up. I'm gonna wanna go run on a trail. And you know what I'm gonna think to myself? Yeah. But still 5 people died last year. I could be one of the 5 getting struck by a snake, right? Isn't that real? Like when you think about the irrational fear towards these completely undefined things, and we all have these fears. We all have these anxieties in our life. I mean, it's real to us. Julius Caesar, some 2,000 years ago, says, as a rule, men or women worry more about what they can't see than about what they can see. So let me ask you the question. What do you fear? What do you fear? I mean, I'm not talking about snakes and spiders and Lucky, the duck. What do you fear? What's keeping you up at night? What causes you to lay there in bed with your mind swirling? What causes your heart to race? What wakes you up in the middle of the night and you can't get back to sleep? What's the first thing you think about when you open your eyes? What causes you, whatever you're doing during the day, to keep your mind preoccupied on this undefined fear that's so irrational? What do you fear? Last Saturday, snowpocalypse was coming, and I looked at my wife. I said, hey, Kim, can we go to Lowe's? Because I'm like, I'm going to be locked in the house, not going anywhere. There's some home projects that I could get done. And so we jumped in the car and went to Lowe's, and I was getting everything I needed. And I asked her, I said, hey, could you go do some returns? And so she went to the return lane. We met back out of the car. I was putting stuff in the car, and she just kind of slipped into the passenger seat. So she's in the car, and then I get in the car. And right when I shut my car door, I looked over at her, and she had tears in her eyes. And she goes, honey, I don't feel good. And my wife isn't that person. She just doesn't cry much at all. She's not sick a lot. And when she had tears in her eyes, like as a husband, I was like, I was fearful. I'm like, what's going on? She goes, I don't know what's going on within me. I just don't feel good. I'm like, let's get you home and get you to bed. So we went home, and she got into bed, and I went downstairs, and I jumped on my bike trainer. And so I was riding on my bike trainer. It was about an hour and 15 minutes later. And I was still on my bike trainer, and my phone rang, and it was my wife. And I'm like, hey, honey, what's going on? And I could just tell right away in her voice, like she wasn't doing good. And she goes, I don't feel good at all. So I ran upstairs, and I looked at her, and she looked worse. And that's not a compliment when you look at your wife and go like, wow, you look bad. But I go like, you look bad. And she goes, I feel horrible. So I jumped in the shower and got out of the shower. We jumped in the car and went to Med Express. And then now we found ourselves, doctors and nurses are in there. And they're running all these tests. And all of a sudden you hear this blood clot word. And I'm like, what? She has a what? And the doctor's like, well, we don't know. But we don't have the equipment. There's something going on. You need to go to the ER. And then we're driving to the ER. We found ourselves sitting in the ER. And when we got to the ER, I mean, they had a room ready for her. They had doctors and nurses all in the room. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is like a scene from the movie. And so we're now in the ER. She has a bed. They're all like swarming around her. I'm just sitting there as a husband going, what is going on? And she's looking worse and worse. And 1 hour goes by, the second hour goes by, the third hour goes by, right? And they're just trying to figure out what's going on with her. They knew it was something, they didn't know what. And all of a sudden the doctor comes in and goes, hey, we think you have pneumonia. I'm like, oh, that's not good. A little time later, the doctor comes back in, and he tried to say this quiet to one of the nurses, but I heard him. And he said, she also has sepsis. Now, I'm not a medical expert, but I knew that wasn't good. It's an infection of the blood. And I did something. I've coached people over the years. I mean, numerous people. Like, the worst thing you can do when a loved one or you are sick or not feeling good is to Google medical results. That's horrible, right? Don't ever do that. Like, just allow the experts to be experts and not Google to be experts. But guess what I did? I heard the word sepsis. I grabbed my laptop. I opened my laptop. I type in sepsis. I hit return. I start reading. As I'm reading, my wife's in the bed, and she goes, "Tell me about it." And this is what I do. And I shut my laptop. At that point, my wife decided to share with me exactly what she thought of me, and I can't share any of those words with you. Because I'm like, I'm not going to tell me. Tell me. Nope. Tell me what you read. Honey, sorry, love you. Right? Like, I'm not going to. And at that point, I knew it was so serious. The next 24, 48 hours, I'm just telling you, fear. I went to the darkest place you could imagine. The irrational fear of the undefined. I started planning. I mean, I'm just telling you. I went to the darkest place. I was consumed. And I saw the fear in her eyes as well. Now, the doctors and nurses, they're like, hey, she's in the right place, and it's good that you're here, and it's good that you were so proactive, and the prognosis is good, and we're now a week later, and just know she's doing a lot better. But I'm just telling you, that 24, 48 hours, I went to the darkest, most irrational place. What do you fear? What do you fear? What do you fear? As irrational as a duck somewhere watching you. You see, the heartbeat of our time together today is you can live an exceptional life, even when life isn't exceptional. Because here's the thing we all get that life isn't always exceptional. We all get that there's moments in life that's on the opposite extreme of exceptional. But here's amazing truth, is even when life isn't exceptional, you can still live an exceptional life. So we're gonna have a little group participation here because there's something powerful about actually getting thoughts out of our minds and hearing ourselves say these things, whether it's those dark, scary, crazy, undefined thoughts in our mind, getting that out loud, that's always healthy because when we say it out loud, we're like, I'm really thinking those things, but it's also good to get the truth out of our mind, out of our mouths, because there's something about hearing the words that we have to say. So we're gonna personalize this, because it's about you, about me, and we're gonna all say this together. Even all of you online, wherever you're sitting, wherever you're connecting with, I want you to say this out loud. And if you're online at home by yourself, or even if you have other people with you, you can like scream it as loud as you want. This is great. But we're gonna say this all together because there's something powerful about saying these words together. Okay, ready? On the count of three, here we go. 1, 2, 3. I can live an exceptional life, even when life isn't exceptional. And that's where we're going today. That's where we're going. Well, when we kicked off this series a few weeks ago, part 1, I made the statement that this entire series, Shift, Opt for the Exceptional, was going to be kind of built upon the foundation of the book of Proverbs, this ancient Jewish text filled with wisdom words, of how to live your life. And we even launched January 1, we launched this tool resource called 19 for 19. And many of you have gone on that journey. It's 19 days. We have a quick, 2-minute video with a short read. And the most important part of this isn't the knowledge. The knowledge is important, but the action side of living out the words found in the book of Proverbs. And so many of you have done this. And if you're a guest with us, or maybe you've missed a couple weeks, I want to still encourage you. You can go to 19-4-19.com or easier, tcconline.info. Click on 19 for 19. You can find the resource there. But I just want to encourage you, it's not too late. Go through these 19 days. Maybe you just need to go through it again, because again, it's not just about knowledge. It's about living it out. It's about action. Wisdom comes from knowledge and discipline, correction and strict practice. So I said that this entire series is going to be anchored in the book of Proverbs. And today is still going to be anchored into Proverbs. So I want you to know that, even though we're going to go on a side journey to get to the proverb we're going to look at. But the proverb we're going to end with, and I will get there, don't worry, I will get there. The proverb we're going to end with and anchor with is probably a proverb. If you've memorized any proverbs or read any proverbs, this proverb we're going to end with is probably, if not number one on your list, it's at least in your top 5. It's up there. And maybe if you're not really familiar with the Bible or Proverbs, I'm pretty sure that the proverb that we're going to look at the end, you've at least heard the words before, and maybe it'll be your first time where you're like, oh, I didn't realize that was from the Bible. It's one of those very popular proverbs. But for us to get to the true impact of those words, we got to look at something Jesus said. Because what Jesus said, well, it's going to wrap that entire framework around the Proverbs. And I think what Jesus has to say is going to actually help this proverb come to life in a more vibrant way than it's ever come to life with you before. So let's get to Jesus' words first. He goes, therefore the word I is important. It's not Chris Trethewey's words. This is Jesus. And Jesus is like, hey, I have something that I want to tell you. He says, do not worry about your life. Life is that bucket. Everything goes in that bucket. Anything that you can even think of, right? Jesus is like everything, all encompassing your life. Every worry, every fear goes in that bucket. And it's almost like Jesus is saying, hey, guess what? I know you are worrying. So he's just going to call us all out. Say, I know you are, but don't worry about your life. And then he goes on. He goes, what you will eat or drink, or about your body, what you will wear. Is not life more than food, and the body more than clothes? Like 2 basic needs that some 2,000 years later, we still understand. The need for food, the need for clothing, like just necessities of life. And then he's going to give some practical examples. He goes, look at the birds of the air, or ducks. They do not sow or reap or store away in barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. And then he makes such an important statement. It's in the form of a question, but it's this rhetorical question. He goes, are you not much more valuable than they? And think about the significance of that statement. I mean, God is saying that all of his creation is extremely valuable. God didn't create anything that he was like, oh, let's just throw that away. No, God's creation is so extremely valuable. But what Jesus is saying is like, hey, all of creation is extremely valuable. But there's this upper tier, this upper echelon. It's called human beings. Men, women, boys, girls, right? It's a whole nother level. And Jesus is like all creation, valuable, lucky, valuable, but every human being, aren't you not much more valuable than they? And that's so important because sometimes we lose the sight of the value God has placed upon us as people. God's just like, hey, everything's valuable, but you're more so. You're more so. And then he says, and why do you worry about clothes? See how the flowers of the field grow? They do not labor or spin, yet I tell you that not even Solomon in all of his splendor was dressed like one of these. If that is how God clothes the grass of the field, grass. I mean, think about like on our scale of importance, how important grass is. I mean, I think all of us would love to shove grass in the unimportant category so we wouldn't have to mow it. Right? Grass is just a pain unless you have sheep. Then I guess you need it. The grass is here today, and tomorrow it's thrown into the fire. Will he much more clothe you? Again, Jesus is setting up this critical point that like we see these animals, and God's like, hey, I've taken care of the animals. I was talking to someone earlier today, and we're talking about all the snowfall and the cold temperatures, and we're talking about Erie last year setting a record for snowfall. And then this gentleman just made this such an important statement. He goes, you know what's amazing? It's like the deer. Doesn't matter how much snow comes, they still find a way to survive. Think about that. No matter how cold it gets, No matter how much snow there is, we still have deer everywhere. I mean, if you live in Treasure Lake, they're like your pets. Right? And Jesus is like, yeah, think about the birds, grass, flowers, all of God's creation. Don't you think he's going to take care of you? And then Jesus kind of gives this right jab. He goes, you of little faith. And this isn't about quantity. You can have 99% straight doubt. But if your 1% is faith in God, you can move mountains. Because it's who the 1% is tethered to. It's all about the quality. Lucky you okay. Lucky's okay. We don't care about the TV, right? As long as the duck, he's a lucky duck. It's still not old, by the way. Right? You of little faith, right? He's like, hey, what's the quality of your faith? And then he says, so do not worry saying, what shall we eat, or what shall we drink, or what shall we wear? For the pagans, now the word pagans, sometimes we see that word in the Bible, and maybe your mind goes like to Halloween, to witches and goblins and demons, right? But it's not pagans like that. Jesus was simply saying it's anyone who doesn't follow the one true God. So anyone who doesn't follow the one true God is a pagan. He goes, for those who don't follow the one true God, well, they run after these things, and your heavenly Father knows that you need them, that he will provide for you. Now, in Jesus' teaching, he's setting up some just, again, practical examples, flowers and grass and birds and, right, how he'll feed us and how he'll clothe us. So he's giving these practical examples. And in the middle of his teaching, he drops in, I think, one of the most important, again, it's poses a question, but it's more of a statement. But I didn't want to get it lost, because I think this is the essence of everything he was teaching. And this is what he said. He goes, can any one of you, by worrying, add a single hour to your life? And we know the answer to that is no. You know another way that you can translate this statement? The ancient Greek is actually about adding a cubit to your height. And it can be translated to a day to your life, or 18 inches to your life. You see, they would measure, a cubit was from your elbow to the tip of your finger. And they just approximated 18 inches. Which you think about it, it's like, well, that's handy. They didn't have tape measures and rulers back then. They had their arms, which is great if you're building your own house with your arms. It's great unless you lost both of your arms. Now you're relying on someone else's arms, right? Your measurements would be way off. But he says, hey, can you add 18 inches to your height? And we all know the answer to that. Can you add an hour to? No. And that's the essence of what Jesus is saying. Like, you're worrying about all these things, these irrational fears of undefined nature, but in reality, does that help at all? So then Jesus is going to give the practical tool. He goes, but seek first his kingdom. And his kingdom is not just an eternal kingdom, that's part of it, but it's an earthly kingdom as well. Seek first his kingdom now, and his righteousness, his right path. And all of these things will be given to you as well. And then Jesus ends by saying, therefore, do not worry. But he didn't say that. But some of you believe that. For some of you, there's so much angst in your spiritual life because there's so much worry surrounding you, and then you put the guilt on, like the Bible says you shouldn't worry. Now I feel guilty about as much as I'm worrying, and then you're like, yeah, see, Chris, it says do not worry. You shall not worry, therefore do not worry. And it's like, no. Jesus didn't say that. You know what Jesus said? He says, therefore do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own. Jesus just owned the fact that, guess what? This life, isn't exceptional all the time. That your day might not be exceptional. And Jesus is like, hey, don't worry about tomorrow. I mean, this is 2,000 years before our nice definition about anxiety. Anxiety, this irrational fear about something so undefined. I mean, this is what Jesus said 2,000 years ago. He's like, hey, don't do that. Your worry, your fear, your anxiety about tomorrow and the day after and what might be and what might come. You got to focus on today. And there's three very important implications from what Jesus taught. The first one is this. You got to reorient your focus. So many, and I'm included on this, so many times we start focusing on everything that might happen, what might occur. I'm just telling you, a week ago, I was in a dark place, and I knew it. I knew it. And Jesus is like, you got to reorient your focus to today. What can you do today? What can you do if your fear, your anxieties around finances? What can you do today? And then tomorrow, what can you do? But don't focus on tomorrow until you get to tomorrow. Focus on today. In your marriage, what can you do today? With your health, what can you do today? In your job, what can you do today? Focus on today and trust that tomorrow, God is going to give you what you need to get through tomorrow. But that comes tomorrow. So go back to today and focus on today. You got to reorientate your entire thinking and not allow your mind go to tomorrow and the day after and the day after and the year after. No. Bring yourself back to today and trust that God will give you what you need for today. Which leads to the next one. You'll reframe your purpose. Now, when you're focused on today, now you're inviting God in. Because when you don't focus on today, you focus on tomorrow and the day after and the day after, now your life becomes consumed with all of your irrational fears. And when you can bring yourself back to today and say, God, I'm trusting you to help me get through today, now you can ask God, but what do you want from me today? God, how do you want to use me today? God, how do you want, in my current life circumstance, whether it's exceptional or not exceptional, what do you want me to do with it today? And I'm just telling you, we waste so much time and energy focused on all the irrational fears of tomorrow that we lose sight of what God wants to do in us and through us today. But all of this is built on this last one. You will relinquish your throne. And that's what the heartbeat of it all is. Seek first God's kingdom. And when you trust God, say, God, I trust that you are in charge. God, I trust that you are in control. And God, I trust that I'm more of a value than any other of your creation. And I trust that you have taken care of your creation and you're going to take care of me. You see, all of this wraps around this proverb that maybe you're familiar with. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and do not depend on your own understanding, your own fears, your own worry, your own irrational thinking. Seek his will in all you do, and he will show you which path to take. Don't worry about tomorrow. Today. And trust God that he'll give you what you need for today. So you can live an exceptional life even when life isn't exceptional. Even when there's a duck somewhere in the world staring at you, or a goose. So one last time, because there's something powerful about all of us saying this together. For all of you online, you're part of this. Let's say it together. Ready? 1, 2, 3. I can live an exceptional life even when life isn't exceptional.